Still not hearing anything. Mm. Okay, I think I got it. All right. All right. So I think we got what we're looking for. All right. Had to update the had to update the output on Camo Studio. So this is actually first time streaming from the iPad directly. The quality looks pretty good. I'm actually pretty impressed with the quality so far. We'll play around with it. We'll see how well it continues to operate. But so far, I'm pretty impressed with it. So what's up? It's been a little minute. It's been a while. Haven't streamed it quite a bit, but yeah, happy to kind of get back on with you guys and share some of the updates that we've been working on. Share some of the tools that I've been having time to really toy around with and experiment with. If you're not familiar with the channel, we go into how you can implement different strategies and different, how you can essentially get the most out of AI, get the most out of software development. We work with a lot of different clients in all different sectors and help them build, their tool set, help them build what they're looking to create. So, that's really what Bagverse is about. And I mean, on the Twitch channel as a whole, I kind of like separated between a lot of stuff we do on the tech side and then also things that we do in fashion, curation lounge. So it's a whole different slew of things. So let's jump right in. So, I mean, 2026 has been a big year for Claude in terms of just one taking over really the entire space when it comes to like really winning over customers and helping them understand like how they can integrate AI into their everyday life. And they've really won by really honing in on identifying what are the key problems for enterprise and then really nailing that and really making sure that, they're really giving the people exactly what they need and what they want and how they can get the most out of AI and just shipping great products that are useful that you can use in the field, that you can use in your personal life. It's pretty interesting because I switched over to Claude. I want to say sometime in 2023, maybe even early 2024. I really just like latched on to what they were building and just how well the models were responding. And since then, I've kind of like stopped being a ChatGPT user for the most part. I think I always like I've switched between. I won't say totally. I do switch between some just to kind of see like what features are out there and how they're implementing those. But by and large, uh, you know, um, Claude has been my go-to model. Claude Code is a power tool of mine, something I use on a daily. And then they just start to introduce more tools. So we'll go over Cowork. We'll even go over Claude Code itself and how it's being leveraged by other parties to kind of like help you utilize certain things. So we'll kind of just go through that, and then I'll also just kind of just do some quick demos just to play around with some stuff. So let's um, let's just jump right in, right? Um, so, but before that, actually, let me actually. I'm gonna first just pull up just to kind of see some of the updates that Claude Code has pushed out within this year alone. And I mean, it's been a lot. Like they've really done a great job of just like shipping products that people can use and that people are really gonna get the most out of. This is just a project that I'm going to be working off of, just to kind of like work through some of the stuff that we do. So I'm also still a big Grok user. I think Grok is still. I think the biggest benefit that I get out of using Grok is that it has the capability of querying X data. So you really get the, that real time enriched data that comes from X, which really doesn't pop up anywhere else from any other models. Because I believe that X is doing a decent job of gatekeeping a lot of those posts and just making sure that they're the only ones that get that. So, you know, um, that's definitely something that, really sort of sets them apart. And for better or for worse, that data can be valuable. You do have to make sure that you're taking it with a grain of salt, or that I kind of use it as my first point of reference. Now, let me get all the possible information, latest real time data or information that's going on a certain topic. And then I'll go ahead and then take that. And then my next step actually is to put that through Gemini to kind of like vet it and see how useful it is. And then I'll take all that information and data that I've accumulated, and then I do my hardcore work in Claude Code, on top of the web searches that Claude Code can do. So, that's kind of like the cycle there. And then also just, the added benefit of being on X and being a premium member is that you get Grok, as a add-on. So it's almost like, why not use it? So let's just give me the updates Claude has released this year. I actually have a bookmark of this too, but let's just see what Claude comes back with. Grok comes back with. So persistent desktop web agents, definitely big. Opus has been really good. Opus 4.6 has been really good. I've seen a decent jump in terms of it handling pretty complex code bases and handling those nuances that you have to kind of like have a certain eye for and understand the code base with. I've seen it consume a lot of tokens, though. That is probably the biggest drawback on Opus. Just overall, Claude as a whole is consuming tokens faster now. So I feel like if you're doing some heavy duty work during certain hours, is that you're going to run into your limitations pretty faster. Sort of like a running joke is that we're in that phase of, if you remember when cell phones started really gaining steam and you used to like wait until after 7 p.m. to make a phone call. We're kind of like in that era with AI where you want to do your heaviest work later on in the night when less people are on, because you hit your limits later. But Opus 4.6 has been great. That drop, Sonnet 4.6 drop, Sonnet 4.6 has been great. We're going to play around with that later. And then what we've seen a lot in March, and it's been a lot to even keep up with, is that there's just been a ton of features around like introducing these agents, and I think it's really also been an answer to OpenClaw, which was a tool that launched. Well, actually, just look at it right quick. OpenClaw. It's a tool that launched I want to say sometime in February, but basically it allows for a headless Mac Mini or any, server that you can get your hands on to just, have agents go out and do real work for you, right? So you can plug up all of your, existing integrations. So your WhatsApp, your Twitter, your X, your Discord, your emails, all the different points of reference that you do work in, Slack, any type of websites, any a lot of sensitive data, and then the agent will be constantly running on that server, and you can communicate with it through different text message platforms. And you could tell it things like, "Hey, send me a briefing of all my emails this morning," or send out emails to my, my direct reports, whatever it is that you want to get out of it. And this, now that since it's running on a headless server, those actions actually happen, and it's in the background doing that. So OpenClaw dropped, and there's a lot of traction on it. A lot of people kind of jumping on it and seeing exactly what they want to get out of it. I haven't had a chance to play around with it, but I feel like the biggest concern with it was privacy. You've heard stories around people just like, once you set up the server, you have to make sure that you're setting up the right permissions. You have to make sure that you're setting up the right firewalls. This is on you to kind of make sure that you are putting yourself in the right position so that, you're safeguarding what this agent can do, because the agent will actually start to have a sort of a mind of its own, and now you're responsible for what it's going to go out there and do in the wild. And that's definitely a big thing to think about with this new agentic world, and how you're building agents and how you're deploying them, and what safeguards you're putting in place. So there's been stories about, actually we can even look it up, there's been stories about people just essentially deploying agents and not realizing that they're responsible for a lot of the bandwidth, and they're responsible for, just like how that model is going to behave and interact on the internet. And there's been some privacy concerns. There's been overusage, so people are getting charged with, crazy API, because you do plug in your API key for whatever AI agent you're going to use, and that's what the model OpenClaw itself will then now use. And because of that, you're now at the mercy of, sort of like what it's going to, how that's going to respond. So what we've seen there is, I don't know why it's not giving me my window to keep talking. Oh, here we go. So, latest news on OpenClaw and the hurdles people have faced. So again, once OpenClaw released, and it got a lot of fanfare, a lot of people were buying Mac Minis. Another way that Apple made more money. So at the end of the day, Apple's always winning in this AI play, even though they've basically punted on it. They're still winning in this, and they're still sort of like the major player in this because they own the hardware space. A lot of people went out there and bought it, set it up, and it was getting a lot of traction. It still is. I think a lot of people are still playing around with it. I still want to play around with it. Maybe I'll do a demo on it. But immediately after that, so yeah, if we look here, it's had a big industry impact on China's grassroots adoption. So like we said, so Anthropic immediately just started rapid firing. They already had the foundation for agents, but now they just introduced I want to say 2 to 3 features over the last couple weeks that have really just like introduced OpenClaw functionality, but in a much safer way, more guarded and more control for you as an end user. So, if we look at some of the safety risks, like I talked about, token insufficiency. So just like you getting an API bill that's just through the roof because you're just not aware of all the things that the agent is doing. Bugs, because you're going to have to upkeep that server. You're going to have to upkeep, any type of commands and markdown files that you're giving it. So, if you're not a developer and you're not in the weeds of understanding like how you, this is that the common thing that we're seeing, like the biggest thing that gets thrown out there is that AI is replacing developers, when really in reality, as a developer, AI is making more work for developers. It's definitely helping. It's definitely tackling a lot of the repeatable tasks or helping us sort of like scale out the knowledge and expertise that we already know. But the replace piece, I don't think it's replacing expertise. In a project like OpenClaw really kind of highlights it, because it shows that, yeah, you can get that V1 out there, but a developer's job really starts after the first version gets out there. And now you have to work through bugs. You have to really fix things. You have to be on top of what else is making that application go. And it's a never ending thing. It's always going to keep happening. It's always something that you have to stay on top of. So, I think that this is actually a pretty good lesson in real time about what it takes to not just deploy an app and get it out there in the wild, but then like, how do you then now maintain that app, and how do you make it something that, it's actually usable still. So yeah, pretty cool. So, and my camera went out, so give me a second, guys. Did my battery die? I think my battery died. I'll have to charge up my battery on my phone, so camera quality probably just went down a bit, but it'll be back up. Of course. Like we said, this first time streaming from an iPad. Actually, I'm streaming directly from an iPad right now. I got a couple of things going. As you see, I'm also able to have a desktop screen up. So, yeah, pretty cool setup. Camo Studios, excuse me. This is my first time hearing about them. Is like today, and I just wanted to try them out and see just how useful it is. And it's pretty good so far. There are a bit limitations because it is on the iPad. The camera quality isn't as good. Bear with me, guys. All right, I'm back. Um, Let me see if I can. I'm gonna try to get the iPhone camera back up. A second. All right. Looks like we're back up. The iPhone Max camera is just so much better. It's probably like the one drawback on the iPad is just like the camera itself is just so bad. But 9 times out of 10, you don't ever really use the camera. So it's never really a big problem. But something to always remain aware of is that when you are streaming, you do need to make sure that you keep the camera connected. All right, so we're back. So yeah, so Anthropic definitely made sure to yeah, they made sure to, stay competitive and just introduce a whole slew of features that once placed on top of the existing foundation of Claude code, the Claude models in the Claude Code desktop app and the Claude Code terminal, it really wasn't that hard for them to get to release essentially what OpenClaw is trying to do, but it just is a more safer and it's a more usable product, in my opinion, especially for people who aren't as so like for me, OpenClaw, I could get into the weeds of it and I can like really dial in and get the most use out of it and maintain it. But if you don't have that sort of like development background and you're not used to maintaining a server, that can turn into a big issue. And that's what, people online are reporting. So, so now let's go to what Claude has done. So this is the desktop app. So before it just used to be chat, and this is where you just had all your chat conversations and you just, kind of like common language now in this day and age where like people are used to like, hey, you have a chat bot and you're talking with Claude and you're producing work. So the co-work feature and code are kind of like the same thing, but co-work, you can think of co-work as, and I like the way that they framed it. Co-work is kind of like a way to get out of the terminal and get the power of Claude Code. And Claude Code is something that I've been a power user of for a while now since it released, is that essentially it's Claude in the terminal, right? So this is my terminal. If I pop up Claude, this is Claude Code in the terminal. So it does things like, yes, I trust this folder. So this is Claude Code in the terminal. And essentially you can now like you can talk with files and projects that are on your machine. So tell me about this project, right? So I'm going to have a conversation with this project. I'm inside of a project. Pretty cool tool that I'm toying around with where I'm essentially like building like a beat making system using local music generation models and some text models to text and image models to help create a beat based off, what you're into and, sort of kind of like the things that you like to kind of like help you create music. I love music, so this is like a cool tool for me to just like start making music with. And I'm gonna start doing some live videos with this app in action. So this is Claude Code, right? So Cowork essentially. So now you see it's actually looking at my file system, looking at this entire project, and I can do things like just auto accept. So you have a lot of different. You have more control, right? So before, like we said, the model was always just in this chat window where you're just having a conversation with it, super powerful, but everything stayed in the chat, right? Now with Claude Code, it gave Anthropic the ability to take their models, and now we can let it actually put it to use on your file system. So I can do a whole lot. I can do things like create new folders for me, start a new, edit these files. Claude Code, you actually can do things on your machine. So Claude Code has been out for maybe over a year now at this point. I think it launched in early 2025. So now you see here, it's showing me everything that we've already built in this project, how it's structured. It's an Electron app that I'm building. So co-work essentially is like for non-technical people to get that same power out of their machine, right? So if we in co-work, you can do things like, all right, I can say something like create files on my file system, right? So let's start up a new co-work session, right? And this is where, to me, this has been probably like one of the biggest unlockings of um, I'll just put it on desktop. Wow. Right, so we're just gonna put it in projects, and then what we can do here is essentially we can now say we can do something like, hey, create. We can do something like now we'll run that same command that we just ran in Claude Code, but we're running here. Open the beat. We'll do something simple like review the beat forge folder and create a markdown file detailing what the project does and save it in a new save it in the projects folder, right? So it's now going to do the same thing that we did here in Claude Code, but it's all from the desktop app. So it's going to go into this folder, review all the same files the same way, create a markdown file with all the details, and then save it. So we'll let that run, and then eventually we will see that file get created, and then I'll open it just to kind of show you guys. And the really cool thing here is that, like I said, so this is for, it's an abstraction of Claude Code, so that if you don't feel comfortable, which a lot of people don't, a lot of people will have their laptops forever and never open up a terminal. This is more user friendly for how 95% of people interact with their machines. That's through an app, that's through the GUI, so this is Anthropic, making sure that they give the same power that they give to developers to everyone. And this has just been a really smart unlocking on Claude's part to make sure that they are exposing the amazing features that they have to everyone. So it's creating it, and I'll actually just even I'll see how it's done. So I think it's still done. So it actually saved it in the it saved it in that file. So if I open it up so I use Warp as my terminal. So this is the file that got created. So you see how it created the same file, but now it's on my machine. I can always go back to it. So you see how now it took the model, it ran something, and now it actually produced something that we can do something with, right? So this is Cowork, and now you can automate these tasks. You can schedule them, so you can have it do things like, hey, look at all the spreadsheets that I added to a folder and put together the financial reporting for the next, trending reports for the next 3 quarters, and produce that document and email it out to my teammates. So that these are all the kind of things that you can do as you create, your tasks, and then also add connectors and create skills. So now let's keep working in here. So you can do things like, I'll actually get to that once we finish going through here. But now the coolest thing that I've been toying around with, this is another new feature that they released this over the last, I want to say, month or so. Now, it was something that was already in place. They already did have an MCP for Google Chrome, but it was really finicky. It wasn't the best. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't, where essentially it would control your browser. So now what they introduced is a Chrome extension for Chrome, and now it gives it much better control over your browser, right? So what we're going to do is, and now this is a really powerful, so one way that I've been using this to unlock is that I have a ton of bookmarks, ton of bookmarks on X that I, struggle to get to. Like, there's a lot of knowledge in there, and sometimes I just forget about it, or I just don't really know, like, have the time to kind of like really go through it. So like something that I've been toying with is using Cowork to essentially like help process my bookmarks. So let's do something like this. We can say open Brave browser and go to x.com and view my bookmarks folder, respond to later, and process the last 3 posts and generate a summary of each and save it to a new file in the projects folder, right? So now this is going to do a few things, right? This is going to use the Claude and Chrome extension, which we already set up before. I got it all set up, but it's pretty straightforward. You just install the that Claude Chrome extension. It's going to open X in Brave, and I've noticed that you got to be really descriptive about it, which browser you want it to use. I'm using Brave. And then now it's going to, so I've already logged into x.com, but you could give Claude your credentials to here's how you log into Claude, here's how you log into Grok or and x.com. And then now it's going to navigate the screen the same way I would. So you guys are going to see it in real time as it clicks through each one of these and actually does the task. So one thing to bear in mind is something that I saw is that these tasks that are doing a lot of logic like this are really intensive and they take up a lot of your credits. So be mindful of that. And then also, you have to be really cognizant of how you wanted to get through that and how you wanted to interact with these other systems, right? Because even though, Claude has introduced some guardrails, it is still going off and doing the same things that you would do. So now it's saying we need to open up browse, open up Brave 2, whatever. Okay, so I probably have to extensions, pin it, let me connect. So you have to make sure it's connected. Okay. So this is how it just makes sure it has that relationship between. So now you see, if we look at Brave, you see it opened up. So what it does is it creates a like a group, a tab group that's controlled by Claude. So now you see this is all Claude. We're going to watch as Claude goes through. So it opened up x.com, and then now we're going to watch as it. So let's allow for all browser action. So you do have to, there are some steps where it still does check. So now you see it's actually taking over the browser, and we can watch as it go ahead and clicks through the same interactions you would make if you were clicking through the site, right? So right now, it sees that I can see the bookmarks page with the response. So let's make sure that it actually. Okay, so this is the session that it's actually controlling, right? So these are some of my bookmarks. I've actually already responded to some of these. So now it's going to go through and actually take these, process them. I'm in the folder. Great. I'm back. Let me see. Get page text. So now it's reading the posts. And as you see the page scrolling, and you know that Claude is in control because it has this like orange border around it. And you see like I'm not doing anything, but the page is scrolling. So I would say that the Claude Chrome extension is really what unlocked this potential, because like I said, they had a Google MCP and I played around with it mid last year, but it was shaky. It was shaky at best. It had some times where it would work, with times where it wouldn't work. It was hitting a lot of limitations. I was using it for more so for just like data scraping. But now this one is like much more in tune, and you do have some other, other players out there. Like you have Google has what is it called, Atlantis. Perplexity has their own browser use where essentially like it can use the browser, it can browse the web just like it's you. Claude went the route of we're just going to build an extension and meet people where they are. I like that idea. I think that it's more scalable. So now it's done its work. And so now it says it has all 6 posts. The folder is sorted. Newest first, so I have the last three. Tab title already reveals the full text of the post. Let me get the post. So now you see how the screen keeps moving. That's obviously that's Claude still doing its work. And it's going through and it's trying to get an understanding of what each one of these posts is about. So we'll keep letting it do its work. And now, I mean, this is the beauty here. So, like I said, with Cowork, you can schedule these. And then now they also introduced this new feature called Dispatch, where you can, so again, how OpenClaw introduced, you can use WhatsApp, Telegram, Discord to talk with your OpenClaw instance. Claude has introduced Dispatch, which essentially from Claude app, iOS app on your phone, you can dispatch commands to your Claude Cowork that you have running on your machine in the background, and then it's always connected to the internet. So now you could trigger a task like this from wherever you're at. So okay, so this is the new file. So now let's open that. And we see that it looked at each one of those posts and it gave us a rundown for the first three. So now this is so now you can imagine just how much more we can do with this because it's actually taking over control of real interactions that you would do if you were on the website. So we can do things like automate responding, automate discovery, automate, just how you know, automate just how you interact with X or any social media platform or anywhere where you're trying to grow engagement. Obviously, can do things like shopping for you. That's like one of the bigger use cases that we've seen. But I think that's just scratching the surface there, right? Like we can start automating a lot of the manual things that we do when we go online or that we just do in our computer because this can pull up any app that's on your computer and do something. So if you use Figma, it can go into Figma and start doing things. If you use Xcode, if you use just think of how many apps that you use that you go. Now, this is a really powerful unlock. I think there are going to be bottlenecks where it breaks, where it just can't do what you're expecting to do, and you're going to have to be there to kind of like help guide it. But to me, this has been a really powerful piece, and I've been really pleased with the leap that it made in terms of controlling the browser and then being able to actually do and execute real things, and then now save that data or do something with it, right? So definitely a really cool feature. So so that's co-work, and like we said, so like you can schedule things, you can create projects, so you have more context in that. You can do quite a bit. So now, and then they have their own connectors and things that, different automations that they think that should be useful, like that you might want to copy and then implement your own and then customize. This is a pretty cool feature because this is where you can create your own skills. I have some of my own skills that I've already created, and that's pretty cool to see that it shares it through different machines, which is pretty cool. And different connectors, so like you can plug up, like we said, Figma, where these are something I've already connected, but you can connect more. So it's really powerful. I think this is a really cool. Again, like I said, it's a great way that they introduced a lot of power. A lot of developers were already getting out of Claude Code. They now exposed it to non-developers to get the really use out of controlling their computer. essentially. Claude Code in a desktop app, I don't use much because, like I said, I use Claude Code in Terminal. But essentially, again, Cowork and Cowork and Code can kind of be, they're interchangeable. They kind of do the same thing. I think that maybe that's their way of like letting people know that you can get the power of Claude Code without being a coder. So these tabs are kind of the same. They're just presented differently. So I see like why they framed it that way. But Cowork is definitely a super powerful tool. There's one other thing I want to kind of show you guys, which has been pretty interesting for me. So this is Ollama. Ollama is a basically Ollama's answer. So whenever you're interacting with Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, you're interacting with a third party model. So you're sending your data, your requests to a third party in the cloud. They're, the model is doing its work and then it's sending you back a response, right? Ollama's uh, Ollama's value is that they launch private models. They allow you to launch private models on your system so that the data stays with you. And they're introducing more and more features like, sorry, public models, and they're introducing more and more features like the private models so that you can then now harness the power of that. And one of the cool things that I've seen here, and this has been a pretty interesting thing, is if you see, so like we can do something like, I'll start a new chat, right? So I have some of these already. I've downloaded some of these models on my machine already, right? So I think I downloaded DeepSeek and Llama 3.2, which, aren't some, they're pretty good for basic stuff, but they're not the best, right? And you do need to have the hardware if you want to run these models locally, because something that people don't realize is that when these models are off doing their work, they're taking up a lot of GPU, they're taking up a lot of RAM, and you need RAM, and you need memory, and you need the space to hold the models for they can do the work locally. So that's why you use a Claude or a ChatGPT or whatever, because they're giving you all that storage and all that RAM at a very low price. As we see, the price keeps rising because these things cost, right? So we can, I'll just quickly use DeepSeek. So now Ollama allows for you to do it in this GUI interface, or you could do it from the command line, right? So I haven't launched it in a while. Ollama launch DeepSeek. I actually use Warp 2 because it's pretty, but I'll ask Grok. Do I launch Ollama locally? It's been a little minute. I think I could just put Ollama. I haven't launched it in a while. Yeah, so chat with the model. So here's our launch Claude Code. I'm going to get to that. Launch Open Claude. So I've been like passively watching all the different things. So now here you see I can start up a chat window here and download some of their bigger models, or I can use ones that I've already downloaded. So I downloaded DeepSeek quite a while ago. So now with Ollama, you can't do web search. So can we search the web? So there are some limitations, right? Oh, it can. Okay, so let's do something simple like give me the latest, or right. So this is DeepSeek model locally running. Now we're not, so in the power of running it locally is that we're not using any tokens. We don't have to pay for this. This is all free. So Ollama, another sort of like selling point here is that they also give you the ability to kind of like mimic the behavior. If you wanted to use Anthropic's API, you can use your own Ollama API. So essentially you can like build out your tools with using these local models so that you have more control. You can train the models on your own data, so that they can get more specific to what you want them to care about. So, it's something that just helps as a developer if you don't want to have to use the private third-party models and pay for it and, sort of like share the data there. So, which was a cool, I used it for a while, and then I kind of like, it wasn't tied into some of the projects that I had going on. So I haven't touched it in a little bit, but what I've been watching passively that's been really cool is that they're introducing these kind of features, right? So remember we opened up Claude Code. So we have Claude Code here, right? And this is Claude Code because Claude Code essentially is a package that Claude built. It's a wrapper around their models. So it's a tool that's using their models to do things. So interesting thing that Ollama is launching is that they're taking that Claude Code package and they're allowing you to wrap it around any one of the models that you download from them. So essentially you get the power of Claude Code, but now you get to switch what models you're using with it. And that to me is a pretty interesting thing because now we can do more with it, right? So, and not hit as much limitation. So let me exit out of this, all right? Or is it Control C? Or buy, okay. All right, so now let's do launch Claude Code. So this is Claude Code, but it's using, we're going to use a Claude Ollama model, which they do have some limitations on. So they are starting to get into the cloud. But actually, let me do this. Exit, and we can do launch. I want to. Launch it with a local tool. I did it earlier. I want to launch it with launch Claude, but I want to launch it using. Okay, so here's where you get to pick which models you want to use. So when I first tried this out, I was using their cloud models. So that's using something in the cloud, which isn't on my machine, but I'm going to use it with, just for now, I'm just going to use it with DeepSeek, right? So now I don't have, so something you'll see with, if you're using Claude Code, is that the more and more you use it and the more intensive it gets. And if you're using Opus, you can hit your limits pretty fast. Whereas now I can do some of those similar things. But I'm not going to hit a limit, right? Or am I? Okay, so DeepSeek does not support invalid request error message. Does not support tools. Okay, so it doesn't support. This model doesn't support it. So let's see if Llama is from Meta. I want to keep it quick. So now you are starting to see some of the limitations you might hit. But okay. So it seems like Llama has the capabilities to do it. Llama's model is decent. I mean, we've all heard the news about sort of like Meta's struggles with keeping up with other models that are out there. I do appreciate that they have deployed free models so that, people can at least just toy around with it and learn with it. And, I have a pair of Meta glasses, and yeah, the responses are decent. I do see how it's paling in comparison to some of the, like Claude, ChatGPT, and Grok, but it has its use cases. So right now, this is running locally. So essentially, like we said, Claude Code is a wrapper around the models, and it's essentially like is a executable around the model. So now it's going to execute something based on what the model tells it to do. So obviously, because it was built for Anthropic's models, it's going to perform better. We're not seeing as much thoughts and thinking between like what's actually happening. But just to let you guys know, my machine is heating up because it's running the models on my machine. So this is one of the benefits that you get using a third party, is that the heavy lifting is done in the cloud and then it comes back to your machine. Whereas when you run these things locally, you really start to see like, oh, wow, these models take a lot of energy to run. And that's something to kind of like bear in mind. So we're going to let that run for a second. I need to do something quickly. You guys see that actually, right? Oh, no? No, you don't see that. I'm not sharing it. We're going to come back to it in a second. So I'm just going to update something quickly. Okay. Okay, I'm back. So it's still running. My machine is definitely getting hot. It's definitely like you can see that it's doing real work to run these models locally. And that's something that like I like the concept of Ollama. I like what it's trying to do. So okay, so here's what we're getting back. The before scope is, so I said keep it brief, so it did keep it brief. We got something back. As you see, it took longer. The detail isn't as in depth, but this is what the trade-off there, right? So if you want to run your models locally, you need to have the machine power. You have to understand that you're getting a trade-off in terms of, like what the results will be. And then, just kind of like working around that and understanding how to code with that. But it is a pretty cool thing that they're doing, that they're giving you the ability to leverage some of these other tools. So like you see here, they have launched OpenClaw. So I haven't played with this yet, but essentially like they're giving you the ability to run OpenClaw on your local and not have to go buy a Mac Mini and set it up. They've probably like figured out all the simple setups for you so that you can get the power out of that. So that's pretty cool. And again, with Codex, so they're giving you the tool sets that the private companies have deployed, but they're letting you use your own model with it. That comes with, risk and limitations, but essentially you can get the power of these tools for free. I'm curious if the big guys maybe block this ability to use these packages with different models. That'd be pretty interesting to see as as these companies grow and as they want to like command more of the market. But yeah, man, I'm gonna probably like stop there. A lot of cool tools that are coming out. We'll get back on doing more demos, but thanks for jumping in. And also, I wanted to shout out Camo Studio. This has been a pretty good experience directly on the iPad streaming. It's been really smooth. I'm watching the stream. And yeah, so definitely a tool that I'll be using. I was an OBS guy, but doing on the iPad just helps making it more mobile. So cool. We're going to end there, man. Check out bagverse.com. Check out our newsletter. I have the links in the descriptions of the lives, and I'll have it on my profiles. So definitely check out bagverse.com, sign up, get the most out of AI, get the most out of software development. And if you need projects done for you, hit us up. We help work with you. We help put together game plans. We deploy them for you. We build them for you, and all the bells and whistles.